With springtime temps and soft ground, it's time to start digging. But today, we're not landscaping. With my crudely drawn map, a ruler, and a shovel, I'm looking for treasure? Not exactly. On today's very important Catscast, all about your Catskills septic system, how to keep it running smoothly, and how to get reimbursed for the cost. Stay tuned.
Catscast is supported by the Mountain Eagle, covering Delaware, Greene, and Schoharie counties, including brands for the local region such as the Wyndham Weekly, Schoharie News, Cobleskill Herald, and the Catskills Chronicle. For more information, call 518-763-6854 or email mountaineaglenews@gmail.com. This episode is sponsored by Ulster Savings Bank, a local bank with a long history of serving the community and offering the modern conveniences of online banking. Visit their locations in Phoenicia and Woodstock. Call 866-440-0391 or visit them at ulstersavings.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Unless you're tied into a municipal sewer system, chances are your Catskill Mountain home has its very own septic system. And if that system isn't maintained, well, remember that scene in Meet the Parents?
What's that smell?
That smell, Bob, is our Fokker flushed the toilet in the den, so the septic tank is overflowing.
Don't let this happen to you. With occasional maintenance and some beefy financial incentives from the Catskill Watershed Corporation, you'll have a septic system you can be proud to call your own. The CWC recommends a septic tank pump out every 3 to 5 years. And in the back of my mind, I knew it was about that time. So out came the shovel and a map of the yard and a phone call to a local pumping service.
I am Orville Smith from Titan Drilling Corp. Or Titan Septic, whichever you would like to call it. There's a lot to septic, a lot more than I thought there was when we originally started it. Right now, we are running 5 days a week. Most days, a minimum of 3,000 gallons, up to about 6,000 gallons a day.
What's the average tank of a residential septic?
Residential septic around here in the Catskill Mountains, average is 1,000 gallons. I've pumped up to a 12,000 gallon system, and it's a lot of work.
How much does that truck hold?
3,000.
So you got to make a few trips on that one?
Oh yeah. And around here, dumping at our sewer plants that are here in this area, you can only dump, 2 of the plants are 3,000 gallons a day, and one plant's 3,750 a day. We can only dump certain days at certain plants. We use Margaretville, Tannersville, Pine Hill, and anything over our 3,000 or 3,750 a day, we wind up going to Oneonta to dump.
So you didn't start out in septic. What have you learned? Is it as bad as one might expect, or not that bad, or what's the process?
It's not as bad as everybody thinks. The truck smells more than the septic itself generally does.
Can you tell me a little bit about how a septic works? Like there's a tank that has to be pumped every so often, and that goes out to a leach field, right? So what are the signs of a healthy septic system, and how do you know when to pump it out?
According to the CWC, which is the Catskill Watershed Corporation, they should be pumped every 3 to 5 years. I have pumped some that have went 25, 30 years. I have pumped some that went 2 years. Every system's different. Every household is different depending on size of the house and how many people's there, and there's a whole bunch of variables. Most of them are a 1,000-gallon tank. Comes into the tank, your solids stay in that tank, and your liquids go out into your leach field to leach out into the ground. And what we do and what we're going to do today is to pick up the solids and anything that's in the tank as much as we can and clean it up as best we can to get you back into service.
And in a healthy system, those solids are also broken down, right, and then go out to the leach field. I don't imagine that 5 years of solids accumulate.
Believe it or not, a lot of the solids do accumulate in the tanks, so you wind up pulling a lot of it out. Some tanks actually have a filter onto them that has to be cleaned every 6 months to a year, so that the heavy solids do not go out to the leach field.
Are there any telltale signs that it needs to be pumped from a homeowner's perspective?
There can be, if you hear gurgling, or you notice your toilets are flushing slow or something along that line. Yes, that's a good indication that you're going to need to pump your septic.
And if it doesn't get pumped and it needs to get pumped, what happens? What's the worst thing that can happen?
The absolute worst thing is a backup into the house.
Anything that homeowners can do to keep it running smoothly?
Not be foolish about it. Toilet paper's fine. Do not flush wipes. Watch your kids. Don't let them flush their Matchbox cars or candy papers or anything along that line down there, because that will not disintegrate, and actually it is a pain in my truck.
And when you pump it out, you pump everything out right down to the bottom?
We try to get as much as possible. You usually wind up leaving a little water, maybe a little tiny skim of sludge in the bottom in spots, but we try to get as much as possible out of it.
Well, should we pump this out and you give me a report?
Sure.
All right. This is exciting.
Just another day at work.
At this point, Orville pulls a heavy concrete hatch off the septic tank and attaches what looks like a giant vacuum hose to the back of his truck. Remember, I'd already mapped out and located this tank, but it's not always that straightforward. I asked Orville what happens if a homeowner is unaware of their tank's location.
Generally, if it's not plugged up, we have a little blue locator that we flush down, and we'll chase it with a magnetic detector. If it's plugged up, then you start with just checking the ground out, and sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. So you just guessing by golly it. I had one I looked for the other day. People just bought the house, no idea where the tank is. I couldn't find it. It may be so close to the house that it's under the deck. It's hard to tell, so we got to go back with an excavator and actually try to locate it.
I guess that gets expensive.
Oh yes, it can get very expensive very quickly. Just for a regular pump like this, you're talking $500 plus tax. By the time you get a machine involved and trying to find it, and if you can find it, do a riser onto it if it's deep, so they don't have to have a machine every time. You can talk up to a couple $1,000s fairly quickly.
Okay, but here's the good news. If you're in the Catskills, New York City watershed, those pump outs are subsidized. And failing septic systems can be replaced with a dollar-for-dollar reimbursement, and those new systems can run tens of thousands of dollars. For details on the program, I met up with Eric Lane and Mitchell Hull at the Catskill Watershed Corporation offices in Arkville, New York.
I'm Eric Lane here at the Catskill Watershed Corporation. I'm the Septic Maintenance Program Manager.
And I'm Mitchell Hull with the Catskill Watershed Corporation, and I am the Septic Program Manager.
Give me just a broad strokes. What's the CWC?
Sure. So we're an organization here. We're to help offset some of the cost of living in the Catskills, living by the additional regulations here that we have to abide by in order to live in the New York City watershed.
DEP gives us so much money, and then we allocate that to different programs to help homeowners, property owners inside the watershed.
And so part of that is the septic program. So why are septic systems a focus for the CWC, and how many staff are assigned to that program?
Yeah, it's a focus because sewage failing on the surface can eventually discharge down into water bodies and streams and eventually ends up inside the New York City's drinking water. So fixing those and making sure that there's no failing septics, that definitely impacts the water quality inside the watershed.
And how big is the program here that's dedicated to septic systems?
So we have 5 staff members in the septic program, and then Eric, who does the septic maintenance program. Roughly every year we sign up about 300 or so homeowners and then try to replace around 300 septics as well. In total, we've replaced over 6,000 septics since the program started in, 97?
So that's an expensive proposition to replace a septic system. You replace them for free, or you reimburse the homeowner so that basically it doesn't cost anything, right?
It's a reimbursement program, so we'll make the check out to the homeowner and whoever does the work. That way there's no money out of pocket, because some of these septics can cost up around $70,000, $80,000.
Wow.
So yeah, most homeowners can't just lay that money out to a contractor and wait to get reimbursed.
Do you know what percentage of homes in this area are reliant on a private septic system?
It's over like 23,000 homes inside the watershed. Residential on-site septics, I'm not sure. But besides like the major communities, like if you're talking Margaretville or Delhi, like somewhere that is hooked to a wastewater treatment facility, every other home is on a residential on-site septic. So it's probably over 65 to 70% of homeowners are on an on-site septic.
Without getting into the weeds, how does a septic system work?
So there's a septic tank. The solids go into the tank and settle, and then the effluent, which is all the water, and that goes out to your leach field. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of leach fields that you can have, but the main thing is that the water goes out there and then disperses. It gets treated in the leach field, and that's what makes the water clean.
Just through filtration through the dirt?
Yes,
the rock?
Exactly, filtration.
And that's not just water, that's, I guess, brown water. It's stuff that's coming out of your
dirty water. Yeah.
Your dishwasher and your laundry machines and your toilets and your showers.
Yep, exactly.
So everything that you use in that system is also going, detergents and things like that. Is there other recommendations for things to stay away from because of all that stuff going in?
Yeah, so I mean, you don't want to like dump a lot of cleaners down your toilet or anything, or down your sink. I mean, your standard amount, like if dish soap and stuff like that's not really going to hurt anything. The systems are designed to handle all that. You get into issues sometimes when you're, flushing things down the toilet that aren't supposed to be down in the system, like wipes, anything that's, large and can clog pipes or...
Yeah, stuff that can't break down.
Right.
Stores will sell flushable wipes. It says they're flushable.
Right.
They are not flushable. They do not break down in a septic tank. We see a lot of issues with that.
And they mat up, right? They'll attach to each other and create a barrier.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of problems occur with septics and backs up into the house. So
stay away from the flushable wipes. Stick to toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Any types of toilet paper a problem, or they're all fine?
I haven't seen any issues with toilet paper. Mainly stay away from don't flush paper towels, something that's real thick and heavy.
So toilet paper and what we're calling solids, number 2.
Yeah.
That goes to the bottom or to the top?
Some will settle out. Then there will be like a scum layer on top, and then the rest is a liquid. And then it also catches hairs and fats, oils, greases that all go into the septic tank. Mm-hmm. That's to hold everything in, all the solids in the tank. And you only want the water going out, because if the solids start migrating out to the leach field, that's what causes it to fail. Typically, there should be around 12 inches of solids on the bottom, and then on the top there will be a scum layer, which is around 3 to 4 inches.
And that scum layer does not go into the leach field?
Nope, that won't go into the leach field. So septic tanks nowadays have an effluent filter on them. The filter is to catch all the the solids, greases, hairs, anything that might migrate out to your leach field.
And does that stuff break down over time, or does it just accumulate over the years?
It just accumulates. That's why we push the maintenance. You have to get your septic pumped because you have to periodically pump those solids out to make room in the septic tank.
Wow. What happens when a septic system doesn't work? And how would a homeowner have any idea that it was failing?
The biggest one is if your toilet doesn't flush, there's probably a good chance that your septic is failing. You could also have a clog in the line, or the septic tank might just need to be pumped because there's too many solids in it. But a lot of times, if the leach field isn't draining properly, everything will start backing up into the house. You might also see sewage surfacing on the ground out in the leach field area. If the soil just can't take that water load anymore, it will start coming to the surface. And that's pretty much the two common issues that we see with septics.
And that's bad for the homeowner, and it's bad for the environment.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yep.
And not to say that you don't care about the homeowner, but your primary concern is for a septic system not to get to a point where it's now leaching into the outside environment, streams, creeks, surface water, that type of thing?
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. New York City has the largest unfiltered water supply in the world, and that's where all of the streams and everything run from are in the watershed. So that's why they implemented the program, to try to keep that water clean and make sure that they don't have to put in some sort of filtration system, which would be billions and billions of dollars.
So even with all the money that goes into these programs, it's a drop in the bucket compared to having to build something downstream.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
better for everybody because it
Right.
keeps everything clean right up the line.
Yeah, it benefits everybody that lives inside the watershed.
Any anecdotal stories about the bad things that can happen if you don't maintain your septic system? What are some of the worst cases that you've seen in terms of backing up or getting into the environment?
We've seen a lot over the years, and we've seen all sorts of septic tanks. I mean, your most common ones from the older days are either cesspools with laid stone or metal tanks. But we've also seen cars as septic tanks, or one time we saw a refrigerator that was being used as a septic tank. Sometimes we see a pipe from the house directly into a stream.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We've just seen massive blowouts of a leach field with sewage spewing all over the place, or running right down in somebody's driveway into the street. And not maintaining it is a big factor. Some of these sites just have poor soil conditions. And back in the day when they installed all these, they did all in-ground systems. Nowadays, when we design them, you have to look at how much usable soil you have. So you have to have 4 feet of usable soil. And if you don't have that, you have to bring in that material. So somewhere that had none would still get an in-ground system back in the day, where now they're bringing in 4 feet of material to take on the load of all that water coming in. So,
And when you say none, what is it, just rock?
it's usually clay.
Which is not gonna absorb
perkable.
anything.
Yeah, it's not perkable.
Perkable meaning pervious.
Yeah, pervious, yeah.
Okay, so there's a few different programs here. There's the CWC's Residential Rehabilitation Replacement Program for residential owners located anywhere in the west of Hudson, New York City watershed, with a household tank and treating less than 1,000 gallons per day. And that includes reimbursement of 100% for full-time residents and 60% for part-time residents for designing, repairing, replacing a failed septic system that's at least 20 years old.
Yep, that's correct.
And that's where the big expense comes if you have to replace it.
Yeah.
If you're the person who has the refrigerator, find out that you have the refrigerator for a septic tank, you probably want to get that replaced.
Definitely.
Yes.
How do people know what they have? I would imagine in a lot of cases they don't.
Yeah, so the first step, usually when a homeowner calls, we tell them you have to contact somebody to locate, uncover, and pump out your septic so we can determine what it is, so we can either deem it likely to fail or failing. So a homeowner will look up pumpers in their area and contact them first to come out and get everything exposed so that we can do our inspection.
And then if it needs to be replaced, a design is drawn up in
Yep. So we
partnership with
meet
you?
with the homeowners. We go over our program with them. We'll do a data collection sheet on the house. And then we will tell them, okay, now your next step is to hire an engineer That engineer will come out and do soil testing, perk tests to figure out where your new leach field's going to go. And then they'll go back, do up a design, submit that to the DEP to get their approval on it. And then once it's approved, now you got to hire a contractor to submit a bid to us.
So there's engineering costs, contracting costs, the actual
Materials.
apparatus,
Yeah.
the tank, all that's covered?
Yep, that's all covered. We have a schedule of values that we go by just to make sure everything is reasonable. But yeah, pretty much everything is covered as long as it fits within our rules and the schedule of values.
Okay, so then let's say we have a septic system that's functional or new-ish. Then we deal with septic maintenance, and septic maintenance is also a program that's covered 50%. Regular scheduled pump outs are reimbursed at a rate of 50%.
Right, yes, we can reimburse for those every 3 years. And we suggest doing it every 3 to 5 years, depending on usage. If it's a 3-bedroom home and there's 6 people living in it, you may want to do closer to the 3 years. But if it's a 3-bedroom home and only 1 or 2 people living there, you can probably go closer to the 5.
And I would imagine there are cases on both sides. So
Absolutely.
maybe there are some due to soil conditions or usage that every year they pump, and then
Correct.
others, maybe a decade goes by and
Right.
everything's fine.
Right. And you can talk to your pumper when they come, and they can give you a pretty good idea that whether you're pushing it too much and you need to have it pumped sooner, or whether you can go a little bit longer or not.
And then what about properties that don't qualify as residential? Do you have programs for small businesses? And
Yeah, so we have it's fairly new within like probably the last 5 years. We have a small business program, or expanded septic, which covers municipalities, not-for-profits, small businesses. The small businesses have to have 100 or less employees. Those are also funded at 100% of reasonable cost. So
for maintenance or replacement?
For replacement of the septic, and then they are also eligible for the maintenance pump outs every 3 years.
At 50%?
At 50%.
What's the average cost or a ballpark to replace a system?
Ballpark is somewhere around, I think this year it's 40, so let's say 42 to 45,000. That incorporates your pumping, engineer, and installation of the septic.
Is anyone replacing a system for a figure like that and not realizing that it can be reimbursed?
It took a while, but the word has spread pretty much throughout the watershed now that that we're helping fund the septics. Some people still get a sour taste in their mouth when they hear the city's name and they don't want to participate, but 99% of people will participate in the program. And it's great. These contractors, engineers, pumpers, it's all been by word of mouth. They just say, call the CWC and they'll help you out. So
You've got to really have a grudge not to take that $40,000 reimbursement.
Absolutely.
I know. I couldn't afford that. So.
And then same with the septic maintenance. What's the average cost for that for a pump out?
The average cost for a pump out is usually between $400 and $450, but we also can reimburse for half the cost of locating, uncovering, the pumping, and then if you don't have risers on the system, we can reimburse for that as well, half the cost. There's quite a bit that can be covered through that program. And some of these costs now for people who have never had their system pumped or located before, it can be upwards of like $1,500. So it gets pricey.
Wow. Once the truck comes and pumps out your tank, where does that go?
So that'll go to a water treatment plant somewhere. There's several city plants in the watershed that do take some of that, but they're all like a slot limit. You're only allowed so much per week per pumper. So every pumper kind of has their time to take it, and they only have so much that they're allowed to do. So if those slots aren't available, they have to take it outside the watershed up near like Albany's one area. I think Oneonta takes some as well, I believe. Mm-hmm. There's one that's out of Pennsylvania that actually comes and does some of the pumpings down near Grahamsville and Neversink, and they take it back to Pennsylvania with them.
And then at those facilities, it's processed to a point where it can be released back into the environment?
Right. It's processed to like a cake usually, and then they take it to like a landfill somewhere.
Wow.
And they're able to landfill it.
Not the nice kind of cake.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Are there other ways that homeowners should be maintaining their systems between pump outs?
Absolutely, yeah. Typically, the pump outs are every 3 to 5 years. On an annual basis, it's good to clean out your tank filter if you do have the effluent filter on the tank. And that can be as simple as digging up the lid, or if you have a riser, you can open the lid and just take out the filter and hose it down over the tank so it all goes back into the tank. And that just keeps that filter from getting clogged, and that'll help prevent from backing up in the house.
And you don't recommend any kind of enzymes or treatments like that?
Absolutely not. Yeah,
That used to be a thing, right?
Yes, and it's marketed. Rex and different companies market things like that supposedly help you to avoid a pump out. But what they do is they cause the solids to break down in the tank, and they can actually migrate into your leach field and cause a failure, and an expensive failure at that.
So you don't want to break them down. You want to keep them in the tank.
Right. You want to keep them in the tank and just have them pumped routinely.
Wow. So if I have a relatively new system, how long is that expected to last? And what fails?
That's the $1 million question. How long is it going to last? Like, some of these cesspools from 1850 are still working, and no issues at all. And then some systems that we've replaced that are 5 to 10 years old are failing again. So I believe I saw a study one time that said the average septic should last about 25 years. But right now we're going back and replacing septics from 1900 up into 1980. So it's really hard to say how long it lasts. If you have better soil, it's going to last longer. If you maintain it, it's going to last longer. And then if you have poor soil that isn't perkable and can't take on that water load, it's not going to last as long.
What goes? Not the tank.
It's typically the leach field that goes. The older systems, like a cesspool, could collapse, or a metal tank eventually deteriorates and breaks, and that will collapse as well. But the main thing that goes is the leach field. Eventually the pores in the soil clog up, and it just stops taking on water. Then you have to put in a new leach field in a different location. And it's hard inside the watershed. These are all existing properties, and it's not new construction, so we have to work to the extent possible with these septics. So a lot of times we're working on postage stamped lots with terrible soil and trees, and access is poor. Yeah, so it can be a challenge sometimes.
Anything else that I missed that you want to impart?
I would say we have a second time repair program now. So after 10 years, if a homeowner shows proof of maintenance on their septic, we'll go back and replace the system a second time for them, or components of that system.
If you maintain it.
If you maintain it. Yeah, if you abuse it, sorry, you're on your own. And there's a lot of things that can be considered abuse, like if you put livestock on your field, or if you start driving over it with a heavy machinery, or your car, or putting a deck on there.
Or have a bonfire on the leach field. That's also not good for the system.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of don'ts with a leach field.
Yeah, we started to compile a list that we're going to start providing to homeowners. We're going to put it on our website and stuff that is going to be a list of things to do and not to do with your new system when it goes in, just to help, just because we want to see people maintain these. It's going to keep the water clean, and it helps us from having to go back and replace it in a few years if that is a problem.
Check for leaks in your toilets and faucets. Make sure that they're not leaking, because if the system's getting too much water, that will also cause a premature failure. And for homeowners that participate in the program, we offer a rebate to replace their toilets, and we offer water-saving kits for shower heads and faucets as well.
Yeah. So saving water it's always a good thing, but it's also beneficial for the system because it's not having to process so much.
It is. The old toilets were, 5 gallons,
yeah.
and the toilets nowadays are like 1.6 on average. So when you reduce the water, it helps extend the life as well.
Along those lines, don't have any sump pumps run into your leach or into your tank, into the system, because that can also cause it to be getting too much water. And if you have new gutters put on your house, don't have them discharge into anywhere near your field or your tank as well. Another thing that we'd see homeowners don't do is they don't tend to keep their engineered plans, and it's important to do, because then you can refer back to that in the future, like where are things, if they want to have it pumped out, they can have that drawing on exactly with the measurements of where their tank's located. Or if they want to build a garage or a shed or something, they can make sure they avoid their system and don't end up damaging their system.
And we highly recommend putting risers on the septic tank so that it's easy to maintain. And it's kind of a reminder, if it's in the ground, people don't think about it. But if you have a riser there that you see, it makes you think, oh, yeah, I should probably get this pump soon. Or
I've taken detailed measurements so that I can always find it. I got to dig down 32 feet, I guess.
Yeah, if you want to have a riser put on, we could reimburse for half that cost through the maintenance program. So
yeah.
And then that way, if you ever have an issue in the winter, it's accessible.
Right.
You don't have to dig down 2 feet in the winter.
Yeah, good point. Great. So how can people find out more and sign up for some of these programs?
Sure. If anybody has any questions, they can go to our website, cwconline.org, or they could call us at 845-586-1400. And the septic program is not the only program that we offer. We have an economic development program, stormwater, community wastewater, flood hazard mitigation, and public education and outreach. So they can call about any of those.
Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Back on my property, I checked in with Orville toward the end of the process and asked whether I could go another 8 years till next time.
8 years for this system, I would say, is pretty decent. I wouldn't really want to go much longer.
He filled out my paperwork, which I can submit to the CWC for a 50% reimbursement. And once the tank was closed, I covered it back up with soil, confident that our system should run smoothly until at least 2032. And then back to that hand-drawn yard map and a call to our local pumper. Catscast, the Catskills podcast, is a production of Silver Hollow Audio. Production intern Juliana Merchant. Transcriptionist Jerome Kozlowskis. With support from our local sponsors.
This episode is supported by Hanford Mills Museum. Explore the power of the past as knowledgeable staff guide you through the mill with demonstrations of the water wheel, sawmill, and woodworking machines. For more information about scheduling a tour or about their 2024 exploration days, visit hanfordmills.org. And by Briars and Brambles Books, the go-to independent book and gift store in the Catskills. Located in Windham, New York, right next to the pharmacy, just steps away from the Windham Path. Open daily. For more information, visit briarsandbramblesbooks.com or call 518-750-8599.
Subscribe wherever you get podcasts and follow us on Instagram at Catscast. Lots more at catscast.com. I'm Brett Barry. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Catscast is supported by a generous grant from the Nicholas J. Juriad Family Foundation and by listeners like you. If you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at catscast.com. Thank you.